What if the nightmares of your patients started to haunt your own? Dr. Alastair Finch was a renowned psychiatrist, a man of science who believed every phantom of the mind could be traced back to a tangible trauma, a chemical imbalance, a glitch in the brain's wiring. His specialty was sleep disorders, and he had seen it all, or so he thought. Then, James walked into his office. James was an ordinary man, a quiet accountant with tired eyes that held a terror Alastair had never seen before. He spoke in a hushed, trembling voice about his nights. Every night, without fail, he was visited by the same entity in his dreams. He called it the shadow with the crooked smile. It didn't just appear, it would stand over his bed, its form a shifting mass of darkness, its only distinct feature a chilling, unnaturally wide smile. It never spoke, it just watched, and the feeling of pure, primal dread it radiated was enough to make James wake up screaming, drenched in sweat. During their first session, Alastair listened patiently. He jotted down notes: recurring nightmare, possible sleep paralysis with hypnagogic hallucinations. He reassured James, explaining the science behind such phenomena. He prescribed a mild sedative and scheduled a follow-up. He was confident he could solve this. But James's condition only worsened. In their next session, James was more frantic. "It's getting closer, doctor," he whispered, his hands shaking. "Last night, I felt its breath on my face. It was cold, like a tomb. The smile, it was wider. I could hear something, like a little girl humming a lullaby, but it was all distorted and wrong." Alastair noted the new auditory element. He suggested a sleep study. He was still convinced there was a rational explanation, a repressed memory trying to surface. He told himself it was just a fascinatingly complex case. That night, Dr. Alastair Finch had a dream. He was in his own bedroom, but the air was heavy and cold. A strange sense of being watched prickled his skin. He sat up and saw it. In the corner of his room stood a figure made of pure shadow. And as he stared, paralyzed not by sleep but by sheer terror, a crooked, impossibly wide smile split across its featureless face. He woke up with his heart pounding against his ribs, the image seared into his mind. He tried to dismiss it. It was just suggestion, his mind playing tricks on him after being so immersed in James's case. It had to be. But the next night, it happened again. This time, the shadow was at the foot of his bed. He could feel an oppressive weight on his chest, a malevolence that was more than just a dream. He heard it too, a faint, melancholic humming, a child's tune twisted into something sorrowful. Alastair's professional composure began to crack. His own nights became sleepless ordeals. He would stare at the ceiling, dreading the moment his eyes would close. During the day, he was exhausted, irritable. His sessions with James became less like a doctor treating a patient and more like two survivors sharing war stories. James described how the shadow had started to touch him, its fingers icy and sharp. Alastair didn't tell James that he, too, had woken up with faint, scratch-like marks on his arm. Science had failed him. Logic had deserted him. In a move of sheer desperation, Alastair sought out someone his academic peers would have scoffed at, a psychic. Her name was Alara, a woman who operated out of a small, cluttered apartment filled with incense and ancient books. He told her everything, feeling foolish but having nowhere else to turn. Alara listened without judgment, her eyes closed. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. Then she spoke, her voice low and serious. "This is no simple nightmare, doctor. It is a haunting. A soul is tethered to your patient, an echo of a terrible wrong." She described a place, a small, forgotten park with a single oak tree. She described a crime. A little girl, the only child of a poor widow, had met a terrible end there. The entity James and Alastair were seeing wasn't a demon in the traditional sense. It was a manifestation of a mother's curse, a desperate, grief-stricken plea for justice that had taken on a monstrous form. "This curse clings to the guilty," Alara explained, her eyes fixing on Alastair with unnerving intensity. "And it spreads to anyone who tries to shield him from his penance. It feeds on the silence. The entity you see is a warning. It paralyzes its victims in their sleep, a prelude to paralyzing them in life, a living death." Alastair felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the room. "What's the solution?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Alara's answer was simple and devastating. "There is only one way to break the curse. The guilty party must confess. He must face the justice he has evaded. James must turn himself into the police. She then added a final, chilling warning. The paralysis is coming soon, doctor. For both of you. The shadow's smile grows wider each night because the time for justice is almost at hand. Alistair left Alara's apartment feeling a dread far deeper than any nightmare. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The humming child, the overwhelming guilt he felt in the dream, James's initial reluctance to speak. James wasn't just a victim. He was a monster. He had raped and killed a little girl. And now, the horror he had created was coming for him, and for Alistair, too. His next session with James was the most difficult of his life. He looked at the mild-mannered accountant sitting opposite him and saw the face of a killer. He saw the source of his own torment. He laid it all out, the psychic, the curse, the crime. He watched as James's face went from confusion to denial, and finally, to a cornered, animalistic fear. "It's the only way, James," Alistair said, his voice shaking. "You have to confess. It's the only way to make it stop. For both of us." James stared at him, his eyes wide with terror, not of the shadow, but of the bars of a prison cell. He was trapped between two hells, a lifetime of spiritual torment that would eventually leave him a paralyzed husk, or a lifetime in prison, paying for his unforgivable sin. The law could cage his body, but what could free his soul? As James sat there, frozen by indecision, the air in Alistair's office grew cold. From the corner of his eye, Alistair thought he saw a shadow flicker and shift. The choice was James's to make, but the consequences would be shared. Will James confess and seek redemption, freeing himself and his doctor from the encroaching darkness? Or will he choose to remain a free man, condemning them both to a waking nightmare from which they may never escape? The shadow waits for his answer. Like, share, and subscribe for more nightmarish horror.